guilty to federal charges in Miami yesterday. The former president is accused of keeping and hiding top secret information. The FBI found over 100 classified documents last year at his Florida home. Trump is the first former president to face federal criminal charges. He's also facing state charges in a New York investigation. Following his appearance in that Florida courtroom yesterday, he flew to New Jersey for a campaign rally. But first, he stopped at a local Cuban restaurant where individuals came to pray for him. Over 330,000 immigrants will be able to renew their U.S. work permits. The U.S. extended temporary protected status for 18 more months to thousands of people from El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and Nepal, reversing a Trump policy. Temporary protected status covers people who've been in the U.S. for years. They are also eligible for driver's licenses and Social Security cards. Republicans who have leaped to former President Donald Trump's defense over his handling of classified documents are using his indictment to escalate attacks against what they say is a politicized and weaponized Department of Justice and a corrupt FBI. They are discussing a wide range of ideas from funding cuts to investigating the DOJ's investigation. And in the Senate, one thought is blocking votes on most DOJ nominees because of Trump's indictment. Meanwhile, some Republicans are quietly saying the federal indictment is serious and could cause problems for the party. Those Republicans acknowledge privately that the federal charges Trump faces for his post-presidency handling of classified documents are far more serious than the earlier ones around hush money payments before the 2016 election. The Southern Baptist Convention, a denomination that is often a bellwether for evangelical America, has expelled 5 churches from the convention this year over their appointment of women as pastors. The move to enforce a strict ban against women in church leadership comes as some evangelicals fear a liberal drift in their congregations and a departure from Scripture. The Republican-led House is expected to consider a measure today that would censure Representative Adam Schiff, a Democratic congressman from California. This censure would be for Schiff's pressing allegations that former President Donald Trump's 2016 campaign colluded with Russia. The resolution also seeks to fine Schiff, the former House Intelligence Committee chairman, $16 million. Now, this resolution is sponsored by Republican Representative Anna Luna. She's a congresswoman from Florida, and she says this $16 million is half the cost of an investigation into the alleged collusion. Well, 5 years after Democrats came close to unseating Republican Senator Ted Cruz in Texas, a group of strategists have launched the Lose Cruz Super PAC. Backed by 7-figure funding, the Super PAC will try to drive anti-Cruz messaging through rapid response with ads online and on television. A new report claims the billionaire Tyler Perry negotiated a deal to buy the BET Media Group from parent company Paramount Global for an undisclosed sum. This deal would give Tyler Perry complete control over BET Media Group as well as VH1. Speculation of a buyout came as funding for several BET projects were pulled last week, including some in Atlanta, home of Tyler Perry Studios. If this news report is true, this would be a historic Hollywood deal for the beloved Tyler Perry. You are watching and listening to Areva Martin in real time, and I'm your host, Areva Martin. This is your one-stop destination for today's trending news, expert analysis, and my unfiltered opinions. In this hour, I'm joined by 2 brilliant contributors. Christopher Walton, he's a former chair of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee, and Katrina Robinson is back for round 2. She's a consultant and former Tennessee State Senator. And a big shout out to my colleague, Angelique Francis, for holding it down yesterday for me. You can catch her on Saturdays right here on KBLA Talk 1580. In hour 2 of Areva Martin in real time, we are going to put in perspective the recent federal indictment of Donald Trump, What does this mean from a historical standpoint? And what would the founding fathers say about this federal indictment? We're also going to talk to a body language expert. She's going to tell us what all of this bravado that we see from Donald Trump, as well as from Lindsey Graham and even Carrie Lake, what does it all mean and say about how they are really feeling about the federal indictment? But before I bring on my guest, here's what I'm thinking in real time. Y'all know that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, my good sister friend, they both get criticized a lot, including by some of the other folks running for president, both as Republicans, Democrats, and third-party candidates. Now, depending on who's doing the complaining, you may hear comments about Joe Biden and Kamala Harris that they are too liberal, that they're too leftist, that they're too centrist. Some even say they're anti-Black. And one of the candidates running for president even called Joe Biden milk toast. Well, I reject all of those criticisms of both Biden and Harris. And although our president and vice president are by no means perfect, and nor is their administration, it is very clear to me that they are both deeply, deeply committed to racial equity and justice for people of color, particularly Black people. And you know why I say that? It's because I have the receipts. Yes, last night, when I wasn't on air, I was joining hundreds of civil rights activists, congressional leaders, community organizers, and just everyday Black folks on the South Lawn of the White House for the inaugural, that is the first ever Juneteenth Cultural and Music Festival. This was one of the most inspiring celebrations of Black culture that I have attended, I would say ever, and definitely in my recent memory. And y'all know I get around from Grammy and Emmy and Tony Award-winning performances by the likes of Jennifer Hudson, Lettucey, Audra McDonald, marching bands and choirs from historically Black colleges and universities, and even rapper, singer, and actor Method Man. They were all in the house. Now, the Shade Room said this was a black event happening at the White House. My translation of that is it was Black excellence on steroids. Now, Vice President Harris, in her remarks, reminded us that Black history is indeed American history. So when we are banning books and we're trying to ban Black history from being taught in classrooms across this country, we are in essence banning and prohibiting the teaching of American history. And President Biden, when he took the stage to give his remarks, you can tell he was just ecstatic. Now, he spent 8 years in the White House with Obama, that is Barack and Michelle. So we know he knows his way around some good soul music, some good R&B, and some good gospel music. So he was right at home at this celebration. In his speech, though, he reaffirmed his commitment to justice, racial justice, and equity. And he reminded this audience, this very, very enthusiastic audience, of the tremendous diversity of his administration. From his appointment of Vice President Kamala Harris, the first Black woman to serve as vice president, to his appointment to Ketanji Brown Jackson, and to his appointment of the largest number of Black judges ever in the history of this country. Joe Biden's commitment to Black folks is evident throughout his administration and throughout the appointments that, as president, he gets to make. Now, none of these receipts, and I just brought y'all the receipts, undermine or in any way suggest that Biden and Harris can't do more. Doesn't suggest that we still need that, the issues of student loan debt, closing the Black-white wealth gap, making sure that there are more Black home owners in this country. All of those are still very much issues. Voting reform, criminal justice reform, all big, big issues that we definitely want to see our president and vice president do more on. But it is a complete fallacy, and I would say even a Republican talking point, to state that Biden and Harris have done nothing for Black folks. Y'all, that just ain't true. We need to quit repeating what other folks say. We need to start checking our facts. And the facts in this case leave no room for any other conclusion other than Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have and continue to go hard for Black folks. And I was there, and I have the receipts. Period. When we come forward, more of today's trending news and my expert contributors right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm young, gifted, and black. KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of Black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of Black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring Black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for Black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of Black audiences are concerned about the lack of Black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the Black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% Black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your Black. Your Black. Your Black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot. Shot with a rest spot.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up.
All right, welcome again, Chris Walton, the former chair of the Milwaukee Democratic Party, and Katrina Robinson, a former state senator in Tennessee and a Democratic consultant. I want to start with you, Chris. This Republican-led House, they said if they took back the House, they were going after Democrats, those Democrats that were involved or led the efforts to impeach Donald Trump. And now we have this resolution that's been authored by this Florida Congresswoman Anna Luna to censor Adam Schiff and to fine him $16 million. What do you make of this? I can't remember seeing any such resolution, based on or targeted towards any Republican when the Democrats had control of the House.
When they truly had actual issues that they were creating, you got Matt Gaetz, who has been implicated in trafficking. You got George Santos. That's all you got to say. Just George Santos. So, and they got their own people they could really be worried about. but they're just trying to make an example out of people who actually threw the crap that they created in their faces. And this is exactly what this is. This is truly just a hit job from the Republicans. Nothing that is of any actual substance. They've literally tried to put articles of impeachment on the floor for President Biden and Vice President Harris. So I don't take these people too seriously. They are not serious individuals. And when they ran to get the majority, they said they were going to focus on the economy. They were going to focus on bringing inflation down. Luckily, we've had an administration in place that is actually focused on the economy, creating 13 million new jobs. We have an administration that's actually focused on inflation. Then now, the last almost a year now, inflation is down almost 40% from its highs. So yeah, I don't take it too seriously. These people aren't real.
Yeah, so ironic, Katrina, that you have the Republicans, as Chris just said, not focusing on the issues that the American people care about, but focusing on this retribution, this tit for tat. You did this, now we're going to do that. And to have the Republicans of all people targeting the FBI and the Department of Justice, the law and order party, the party that believes in supporting law enforcement agency, is now going after the FBI. Some of the Republican candidates are saying that they would gut the entire FBI and the Department of Justice. They're saying that they've been weaponized despite this mountain of evidence against Donald Trump. What do you make of this Republicans now, who I guess they are the defund the police party?
Now we can go that far, but I will say this: there's a stark difference between the Republican Party and the Democratic Party. Of course, Republicans are more hell-bent on the politics and the rhetoric, and Democrats are more bent on policy and real life. And so we have these issues come about because that is now the climate in politics. It's you did this, but we're going to do this in retribution. Or you were unsuccessful in this effort, so we're going to prove why you were, instead of us governing and actually formulating policy that helps the American people. It's unfortunate, but that's where we are.
Yeah, so Chris, Katrina scoffed at my defund the police, but let's follow that, because this is exactly what the Republicans, i.e. Jim Jordan, says they are considering, which is cutting off the funding for the Department of Justice and the FBI, because they believe that they've engaged in some kind of, targeting of Donald Trump. So why isn't the Democratic Party framing what they are doing in the same way that, they put the jacket on Democrats that we wanted to defund the police when we talked about just shifting some resources from police departments into social service, groups or agencies, and to reduce the inflated budget of some police departments? How is what they're threatening to do any different than that?
Right. Honestly, I guess so much for back to blue. But I guess we figured that out on January 6th when they actually killed police officers trying to overturn an election. So, hypocrisy is not something that the Republican Party is afraid of. They've always been very interested in being as hypocritical as they can be. But I guess what I'm asking, where are the Dems? Like, shouldn't we be jumping all over this better messaging around what they are doing? Because if they talk about withholding budget from the DOJ and the FBI, they are in essence defunding law enforcement. Yeah.
I will say, Areva, that's one of the things that happens with the Democratic Party. We miss out on messaging consistently. This is an opportunity for us to capitalize on the missteps of the Republican Party at this very point. This is a very critical point. We have an election coming up next year. We should be messaging what is happening in the Republican Party, because then it sends the message to their party, as they are divided right now, and to their supporters, that they do not know what they're doing. One day it's this and the next day it's that. So as Democrats, we do have the responsibility incumbent upon us to make sure that we're messaging to our bases, to our support, that this is what's happening on the other side of the aisle. This is how it was pictured when we presented it, and this is what's happening in their party, and this is what's going to be the implication. And that would help us to drive out the voters. That would help us to increase voter engagement, and will also help us to kind of sway some of those people who are on the tipping point on the Republican side. They're sick of it. But Democrats have not done a great job of taking advantage of these moments and messaging that to our base.
Yeah, you're right, Katrina. One of the headlines coming out of the news today is that quietly, there are lots of Republicans who are talking about Donald Trump's legal jeopardy and are recognizing quietly that he is in trouble and that his trouble can and will impact the party. And they're talking about down ballot races. They're obviously talking about the presidential race as well. But Chris, like we need to be running into this like head on, because there's so many opportunities for us to make comparisons. I'm thinking of all the Democratic candidates that had to run over the last year or so that had to defend themselves. Brandon Johnson in Chicago, Karen Bass in Los Angeles, having to fight back this concept that they wanted to defund the police, that they were anti-police. And now you have Jim Jordan saying, we are anti-FBI. We want to gut the entire FBI. I just feel like we are, as Katrina said, missing out on a critical opportunity here for not just the Dems, but for those independents. I mean, they're at play. The independents are at play, and there are some never Trump Republicans who are at play. What would you advise the party, if you were still head of your Milwaukee party, about what we should be doing in this moment to gear up, taking advantage of some of these really extremists? Like, to have the FBI say, but have Republicans say, we hate the FBI, which is essentially what they're saying. We don't trust the FBI. That's huge.
And you're exactly correct. Honestly, if it was me, if I was making those decisions, I'd say hit them hard and hit them as quickly as you can. But right now we have also the current administration, they are trying to project the hands-off approach that it should be. They're already saying that Joe Biden on Fox News, he's a wannabe dictator who's prosecuting his opponents. That's simply not true. He literally has no hand on the Justice Department saying who to prosecute, who to go after, who to investigate. His own son is being investigated. And you think if he had the time to spend not being president and trying to influence investigations, you'd think he'd go try to protect his own son, but he's not, because he's being a president. He's not trying to get involved in the justice system. He wants the justice system to work equally and fairly for everybody. We just happen to have a supervillain over here getting in the way and causing trouble. And so now his henchmen are trying to stop the Justice Department from doing their job.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned, Katrina. I think as Democrats, we try too hard to, have the appearance of neutrality, objectivity for Republicans, those Republicans in particular, who it doesn't matter. Yesterday, the couple of hundred people, not the 5,000, not the thousands, the handful of folks that showed up in Miami outside that courtroom who were not protesting. It seemed to be like at a block party or whatever. I don't know what they were doing, just kind of mulling around. But there were a lot of reporters out there interviewing some of the folks. And some of the folks said, look, this to us is like a college football game. And we've chosen a team. And we don't care what that team does. We don't need to read the indictment. We don't need to look at the pictures of the boxes next to the toilet or in the shower, because we are sticking with our team. So for those people like that, it doesn't matter what Joe Biden does to try to appear less dictatorial or to be objective. They are with their team. So I'm saying forget those people. We can't change them. They're going down with their team. Win, lose, or draw. They're with the team. But there are people out there who do care about the rule of law, who do care about what's in that indictment, and who do look at those boxes and say, oh my God. So is Joe Biden perhaps missing out on, or is he playing into, this Republican notion that somehow you need to be more objective, when the reality is for some of these people, there's nothing that he can do that they would ever acknowledge as objective?
I think it's a two-headed coin. So Joe Biden has to address the issue, first of all. He has to address what's happening, because it's a part of his race. It's a part of his campaign that he's going to have to address later on next year. However, when you speak of the people who are outside for Trump, there's nothing you can do to sway those folks. Biden has the responsibility to remain being the president. Trump is going to go to his tried and true tactic, which is he's going to blame Biden as the person that's personally prosecuting him. And he's going to try to say that the justice system is corrupt and they are, after him. But Biden has to focus on his administration making a good impact for the remainder of this particular term, not necessarily addressing Donald Trump specifically. However, I do think we as the Democratic Party need to be bringing light to what's happening in this indictment. That's kind of one of those things where you have to kind of delegate who does what and make sure that we're fighting the right battles where we're supposed to be fighting those battles. That's not Biden's battle to fight.
Yeah, it may not be his, but there are clearly surrogates, and we often see surrogates, dispatched to go out and to carry a message. And I just wish we saw more surrogates out talking about the hypocrisy of the Republicans who now want to defund the FBI, who want to defund the Department of Justice, and who are trying to make this false equivalency between the Trump indictment and the documents that were found at Biden's house, the documents that were found at Pence's house, and even going back to the Hillary Clinton's emails. Chris, we know Donald Trump's playbook is victim, victim, victim. He stopped at that restaurant on his way out back to New Jersey to have the Cuban community pray for him and to, place himself in the role as this political, as someone who's being prosecuted and persecuted because of his politics, not because of his actions. And for some Cuban Americans who have, communism really fresh in their minds, have communist dictators in their mind, he's saying that's what Joe Biden is. He's making a comparison, between Castro and Joe Biden. And some reports suggest that this is powerful and could be persuasive for some Cuban American and other voters in Florida in particular.
Well, I can't really explain a lot about the average voter in the state of Florida. They have clearly made decisions that don't make any sense to me whatsoever. But when you really want to look at the history of communism and Marxism, communists were the one who were doing book bans and not allowing certain books to be read in the Soviet Union. People getting rid of their political opponents. Donald Trump was the one calling on Hillary Clinton to get locked up and actually got impeached the first time for trying to pull a fast one and get a bribery from the Ukraine to try and stop Joe Biden, who he's afraid of facing for good reason, because we saw Joe Biden kicked him out of the White House. So
hold that thought for me, Chris. When we come back, I do want to talk about what communists really do and how, the hypocrisy and the irony of Trump trying to, make the comparison of Joe Biden as a communist when all of his actions speak much, much more to those of a Castro. And then we'll talk about the Southern Baptist Convention kicking out churches because of women in leadership positions. Stay with us. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm young, gifted, and black.
KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
And I'm Haywood Galbraith, photojournalist and founder of the Minority Photojournalism Institute. Thanks, KBLA, for your generous $10,000 scholarship gift to help us train the next generation of black photojournalists.
Congratulations to all the students who will benefit from the scholarship dollars raised at our Black History Month luncheon honoring black legends in LA media. When we come forward at KBLA Talk 1580, we're bringing everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us. Everybody with us.
Access granted.
In a survey conducted by the public opinion research firm Eviderus, KBLA Talk 1580 consistently emerged as the station of choice for black audiences in the Los Angeles media market and beyond. The survey also revealed that the vast majority of black audiences are concerned about the lack of black-owned media and are more likely to listen to talk radio that focuses on issues that impact the black community. For some reason, the other talk stations haven't quite figured that out.
If you think about KFI, well, KFI only has like a 3% black listenership. 3%. So there's a good 97% out there to support a station like KBLA.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we've got your black. Your black. Your black.
Follow the leader.
KBLA Talk 1580.
Follow the leader.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram at KBLA 1580.
Follow the leader.
Are you ready?
The station leading the way with exclusive interviews,
Follow the leader.
stimulating conversation, and intellectual discourse that empowers, enlightens, and informs.
Follow the leader.
Follow the leader at KBLA 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Keep following the leader.
Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader. Follow the leader.
Gotta stay fresh, ma.
House shot with a rest by, shot with a rest by, shot with a rest by.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
The bounce is back.
Here comes the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search, but we are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
If you're not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580. KBLA Talk 1580.
Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
I'm young, gifted, and black.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we do more than just talk.
Hey there, I'm Jared Hill, president of the National Association of Black Journalists of Los Angeles, and I just want to say thank you for the benevolent $10,000 donation and scholarships for the next generation of black journalists.
All right, I am back, and Chris Walton, former chair of the Democratic Party of Milwaukee, is with me in this hour, as well as Katrina Robinson. She's a Democratic consultant and former Tennessee state senator. All right, Chris, you were giving us a little history lesson on communism and why it is, again, so hypocritical for Donald Trump to try to paint Joe Biden as a communist. And he's doing this, obviously, to try to curry favor with voters in Florida, in particular, those voters who escaped communism. Many came from Cuba and found their home in Florida. And now Donald Trump is trying to appeal to them, saying, look, if you support this guy, you are supporting the same kind of communist dictator that, you fled Cuba for. So help us understand why this is laughable and why people should not fall for this kind of gaslighting.
Right. Because it's just simply not true. If Joe Biden, of all people, is a communist, somebody who is literally one moment, oh, he's too moderate, he's too milquetoast, now he's a communist, give me a break. Communists banned books like they did in the Soviet Union and like they're doing in Florida. Communists actually try to prosecute their opponents. That's not what Joe Biden is doing. Joe Biden, we just had a conversation about that, how he's literally trying to do everything he can to stay away from the prosecution and let the Justice Department actually serve and do its job. So, but I guess this is why you have book bans, so you can actually ruin the history and make people influence them to make them think things that are not the case. This is just simply not the case.
Yeah, it was famously said there's history is made, and then there's the history that is made up. And this is definitely what Donald Trump is the mastermind of, is making up his own facts, making up his own history. And you literally need a fact checker to follow that dude around so that every sentence that comes out of his mouth, somebody is fact checking, because he's incapable of telling the truth, which is why with his legal problems, one of the big questions is going to be, will he testify on his own behalf? And every lawyer that I've talked to, every lawyer that has opined on this question says absolutely positively not, because the dude is incapable of telling the truth. And if on the witness stand in any case, whether it's a civil case or a criminal case, he will perjure himself. That is undeniable. That's you can bank on that. So no, Joe Biden is not a communist, and hopefully those folks in Florida, those voters, will have a better understanding about how Donald Trump is gaslighting them. All right, Katrina, let's talk about these Southern Baptists. Oh my God. 5 churches expelled from their convention this year because they appointed women as pastors. And one of these churches is Rick Warren's church. Everybody probably knows Rick Warren. He wrote the famous book, Purpose Driven Life. He has a church. I think he's retired now, but built a church that has over 50,000 members. And he appealed his church being kicked out of the convention. And I think the recent report is that his appeal failed. And his church, along with several others, now are out of the convention. What do you make of the Southern Baptists saying that this is biblical, that this is based on scripture, that women cannot be leaders?
That's been a longstanding policy of the Southern Baptist Convention. I mean, I've had to go up against them in committee when talking about women's reproductive health and their stake in that. So it's long been an issue where they did not believe that women were worthy or called or ordained to be women leaders in the church. However, I just don't understand how you can equate that to biblical authority, how you can say that it is biblical authority that a woman cannot pastor, a woman cannot lead, a woman cannot preach, when women are all throughout the Bible saving people's lives. Let's be clear. However, that has been a longstanding policy for them. And I knew, when Saddle Creek went back for the appeal, I mean, you can't appeal what their policy is. It is their policy. But them being expelled from the convention, I don't think it really hurts the church. The church has a very strong membership, a very strong following. They will still allow the women pastors to serve. However, they won't be a part of the Southern Baptist Convention. And I don't really think that hurts them.
Yeah, you mentioned you had to go up against the Southern Baptists. We have a clip of that when you were in the Tennessee State Senate. Let's take a look at that clip.
With Roe v. Wade, our society tipped toward becoming a culture of death. Abortion is largely a violent form of birth control. For mankind to claim authority in determining when life begins and when it ends is the pinnacle of arrogance. If we continue to devalue life, as we've seen in places like New York, where does it end? At what point are children with birth defects judged of no value and terminated? The elderly judged of no value and are terminated? And what about ethnic groups? Send a clear message to all people everywhere, and especially New York, that together Tennesseans stand for life.
How many women executive pastors do you have in your convention?
How many women executive pastors?
Or senior pastors?
None.
All right, Katrina.
So is it the same ideology that restricts access to women being able to lead a congregation that leads you all to support women not being able to make the medical decision about their body?
I don't think the biblical interpretation of the leadership of churches has anything to do with the question before us.
Help us understand, Katrina, what we were just listening to.
So in Tennessee, we had the fetal heartbeat bill, which was basically a ban on abortion access for anyone who was even 5 weeks pregnant, whether they had birth defects, whether it was incest or rape. We were just fighting for the rights of a woman to be able to make a decision as to how she proceeds with her pregnancy. And we had a committee where we had 26 people to come and testify. Only 2 of them were women, but the Southern Baptist Convention decided to show up and advocate for their stance against choice. And this particular person was the leader of the Tennessee iteration of the Southern Baptist Convention, who basically challenged women being able to make decisions, women being able to be in leadership. And the point that I was making was you made all these points about who you value, whether we value the elderly or the unborn, but what about women in leadership?
Yeah, and he tried to push back and say that this issue about abortion rights didn't have anything to do with women in leadership in the church. And I take it you disagree. You thought there was very much a connection.
I think there's a connection with women being able to make independent decisions. And I think a lot of people confuse that whole abortion debate, whether or not it's somebody's pro-abortion or against abortion. It's not about that. It's about the woman's ability to make a decision. And with him being there to testify and not allowing women to be in decision-making roles in his church, it totally made sense that he was there to testify against choice.
Right. So your point is, you don't think women can make decisions in a church. You don't think women can make decisions about their bodies. You just don't think women are capable. You think we're subservient. You think we're second-class citizens, and that's consistent in his ideology and his thinking about women in any capacity. What do you make of this, Chris? So you have this Saddleback Church, as Katrina said, Rick Warren's church. Rick Warren is a renowned pastor. Some put him on the same level as a Billy Graham type preacher. His church has been expelled. His appeal to be reinstated was denied. So is the Southern Baptist Convention saying, look, our rules, our way or the highway, seemingly is what they're saying?
Basically. Honestly, I love to see women in charge. Full stop of a sentence. Period. I think that women are more than capable of being in any leadership position that they choose to be in, whether it is being president, vice president, mom, coworker, supervisor, manager, radio host, attorney general, whatever a woman wants to do. Never in my experience of life have I seen a woman be stopped from something she wants to do. So I think that it's a failure on the church, on the Southern Baptist Convention, to not allow women to be the leaders that they are. And so, I stand with the ladies always on this one.
Yeah, this one seems pretty clear, but obviously the Southern Baptists are holding firm. We'll see how long they're able to do that. I'd be curious to see what some of the women who are part of this organization, how they feel about, again, the leadership, this patriarchal leadership stance that has been taken by the Southern Baptist Convention. When we come forward, we'll talk about Ted Cruz. Dems say he's vulnerable, he's weak, and we can get him out of office. Let's see what our experts have to say about that when we come forward. KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar, shot with a rest bar.
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team favorites at KBLA.store today. That's KBLA.store for all the official merch on your favorite talk radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
Good off the brand new flavor in your head.
Race, social justice, sports, politics, art, music, culture. We do it all on the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show. If you're not tuning in, then you are definitely missing out. It's the D.L. Hughley Afternoon Show weekdays from 2 to 4 only on unapologetically progressive KBLA Talk 1580.
Like a brand new flavor in your head. Yeah.
This is a rather bold pronouncement, but we think we can back it up. If you come across a radio frequency anywhere putting more variety and more diversity on the air than KBLA Talk 1580, we sure would like to hear about your discovery.
You got to have vision.
You can search. We are confident that you won't find more shows covering more topics, hosted by a more diverse and inclusive lineup of talkers than the squad we have assembled here at KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the time, brothers. This is the time.
We've got something for everybody.
That's right.
Health and healing, history and humor, issues and events, empowerment and entertainment, all in one station.
What's really going on?
Free enterprise, you dig?
KBLA Talk 1580.
Yes.
Oh yeah. We got a lot to talk about.
King Kong ain't got on me.
not listening to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings on KBLA Talk 1580, you're missing out. Everybody wants to talk to Tavis.
That's one reason, by the way, why I'm so thrilled to have this conversation with you today. The three people I always most hoped would interview me were Phil Donahue, Studs Terkel, and Tavis Smiley. Donahue's retired, Terkel's deceased, so this is a real thrill for me. And the reason why I have such respect for what you do is you have a historically informed conversation of depth and detail.
Be sure to tune in to Tavis Smiley weekday mornings, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on your unapologetically progressive radio station, KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA Talk 1580. Is the pen mightier than the sword?
They say the pen is mightier than the sword. At KBLA Talk 1580, we not only have a lot to talk about, we have a lot to write about. Politics, relationships, business, empowerment, and culture. The all-star roster at KBLA Talk 1580 has you covered.
That's what it's all about.
Be sure to follow us on all our socials for our latest book releases, op-eds, essays, and commentaries from our hosts. And, of course, download the KBLA 1580 app as we strive to remain your most trusted, credible, and reliable source for the issues you care about. This is unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
What up, baby?
Chris, earlier we were talking about some of the Republicans who are quietly saying that Donald Trump's indictment is going to be a problem for the party. There's also a new report out, article in New York Times, talking about his opponents who are really, really nervous about the endless media cycle that this indictment is, creating. And how are they, his rivals, who are desperate for media coverage, going to get any coverage of their campaigns if Donald Trump's indictment is going to be the news of the day for the next 12, 16 months leading up to the election? And many fear that even if they do get some media attention, it's going to all be about questions about what they think about Donald Trump's indictment. If you were advising any of these rivals running for president on the GOP side, there are like 8 or 9 of them other than Trump, what would you tell them? Because I think they're right. It's going to be very, very difficult for them to get any oxygen in the media world given Trump's indictments.
Well, first and foremost, my parents taught me better, so I would never advise any of these people. Secondly, on top of that, I'm not in the business of giving Republicans advice. Do what works best for you, kids. Have fun. But honestly, they're either going to have to get out there and fight, or they're going to sit where they are right now in his shadow.
But Katrina, you run for office, so you know what it's like. How do you fight against a guy that is basically a reality show on wheels? He leaves the courthouse yesterday, and he doesn't go home to, quietly talk to his wife or his kids or his advisor. He gets in a big black sports utility vehicle. He has an entourage of Secret Service, all, in dark glasses, right out of a movie. He stops at grocery stores. Then he stops at a restaurant with these, these entourages, these bodyguards, and he gets some, Cuban, residents, Cuban Americans who live in Florida to come into a restaurant and pray for him. So you got to compete with all this drama that this dude is creating. This is all just leaving the courthouse. This is just like 15, 20 minutes in his departure from what for most people would have been the most devastating day in their lives. Most people would have went home and went in their bathroom, crawled up like a baby and cried. But he's out with all of this drama. How do you compete against that?
You don't compete against it. You choose your competition. So if I'm a Republican and I haven't received a check from a Republican, so I think I can say this. But if I'm a Republican and I'm running in a race where Donald Trump is actually on the ballot, my focus is going to be on my particular race. I'm only going to address things that have to do with my race and my campaign. However, if you have to mention Donald Trump, you give light to him for that to be overshadowing in whatever coverage that you do receive. So they have to be very, very skilled and articulate in how they convey their message when they do earn media. And the moment that they mention Donald Trump's name, it's down the drain. It's going to overshadow the whole story. So they have to be very, very, very concise in their messaging.
So, Chris, Vivek Ramaswamy, he said, if you can't beat him, join him. So he got his little tail on an airplane and flew to Miami from Ohio and started talking to the journalists. Now, he had to talk about Trump. He had to say he would pardon Donald Trump if he got elected. And he, tried to appeal to the Trump donors. Now, there are folks outside shouting, "Take your A home. We don't want to hear from you." So he tried to insert himself in the story to get a little media attention. And Donald Trump's supporters, they weren't having it.
Well, nobody takes him as a serious candidate, honestly. Let's just be real about that. He has as much chance of getting elected president or getting a Republican nomination next year as I do. He's running for the cabinet. So he's trying to make sure that if somehow Trump gets elected president, he's getting a cabinet spot. Nobody's taking him as a serious threat anyway for the presidency.
Well, Katrina, some of these guys who are running, DeSantis, Mike Pence, other than Chris Christie, and I guess a couple of others have been very direct about how horrible this is, but others are tying themselves in knots, trying to grab media attention while not alienating the base because they're still afraid of the base. Is there a way to do both? Is there a way to talk about the indictment, make it clear that this is a bad thing, that people should not be voting for someone that is indicted for these kinds of serious crimes against our government, but at the same time, not alienate the base? That seems like a really, very thin tightrope to try to walk.
Again, I mean, it's a very tough balancing act when you're running for the Republican nomination because Republicans are so enthralled in their party and in their politics. And so they have to do a good job of being able to balance them being the candidate and not being overshadowed by Trump, but also not putting people off who would have normally voted for Trump or who still support Trump. They have to be able to speak to both of those voters. And I think DeSantis has tried his best to remain neutral, but also calling him out in the most eloquent way with the interesting choice of words that he uses. Chris Christie, of course, started his campaign against him years ago, but they have the very, very compromising position of being able to balance being the candidate, but also not alienating that Trump base if and when Trump is not in the race anymore.
Well, this is tough, Chris, because I'm just reading this report that DeSantis's PAC, one of his PACs, released a video attacking the Biden DOJ for indicting the former president. So I don't know how that's just going to sit there and make the folks that support Donald Trump say, we should support him because the other guy is also supporting him.
It's a mess. I love it. I'm loving every minute of it. I wish them nothing but the most disastrous things that can happen to figure out each one of their campaigns as they all stumble behind and get stuck behind Donald Trump's shadow. Good luck. Have fun. We'll see you all in the trash heap of history because it's not happening.
Yeah, this is a true it show because you're right. You got folks running ads criticizing the Department of Justice for indicting the guy. And the average voter is going to interpret that to mean an endorsement for the guy. So I don't know how these other candidates expect to get anything done. Real quickly, Katrina, let's talk about Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz came really, really close to losing his Senate seat to a Democrat in this last election. Now there is a PAC that's emboldened saying we got money to put behind a campaign called Lose Cruz. So what do you think of this? This is Texas. This is, it ain't Florida, but it's Texas, the cousin to Florida. Do you think this is going to work?
I think it could be very impactful. I will say that this PAC could make the difference. I mean, if you think about it, Ted Cruz lost to Beto O'Rourke. Won to Beto O'Rourke with just 2-point spread. So if you've gotten somebody who's backing him, I think Beto may have raised $70 million. If you got a PAC that's raising money to put behind a candidate who is a viable candidate, Cruz is in trouble. I mean, Texas, of course, is an overly Republican state. Every statewide office is held by a Republican. They have the majority in the House and in the Senate. This could be that race. This could be where people are fed up and you don't have enough support for the Republican Party for a Democrat not to win. So it's not really the Democrats' race to win. It's the Republicans' race to lose.
Yeah, and real quickly, Chris, there are some reports that Tyler Perry has actually purchased BET and VH1. We know Paramount put BET Media Group on the chopping block, trying to sell it. We know that there were a couple of Black billionaires, including Byron Allen and Tyler Perry, who was going after it. So that's the good news is that we have Black folks with the kind of money needed to buy these major networks. What do you think if Tyler Perry has in fact purchased BET and VH1? What do you expect to see a change as it relates to, or do you expect to see a change as it relates to the programming on either network?
Well, I think we're going to get nonstop Medea on BET for a while, but it's going to be right. What's the real difference? So, same channel. I think it's a good thing. If we have Black people actually running BET, hopefully we can bring back some of the better parts of BET from the history. Bring back some of the music videos. Let's bring back 106 in Park, from my generation. Let's bring back, actual shows. Let's bring something of value back to BET other than repeats of the same old shows that we've seen 100 times from Tyler Perry.
Yeah, I think it's, quite remarkable, the way we tell our stories and to be in a position to be the people who control the purse strings and control the decision making about what shows and what movies will get greenlit, and to have Tyler Perry obviously be in that position is historic. He'll be the first African-American man to own major networks, and, to be in that position, like I said, to tell those stories and to impact how we are seen. And BET obviously has done some great programming. They've done some programming that we would probably all agree, not the best programming. But this is an exciting, I think, chapter in our history, Black history, our culture.
As long as he doesn't put in those wigs from some of those movies, just leave those where they are.
Well, we can count on Tyler Perry to mix it up. He does a lot. He acts himself, so he might be, starring in a bunch of things because he likes to produce, he likes to direct, and he obviously is a performer himself. So kudos, Tyler Perry, if in fact these reports are true, that you are the new owner of BET and VH1. All right, folks, we're out of time. Thank you so much, Chris Walton and Katrina Robinson. Always a pleasure to see both of you. I'm always a lot smarter, and my viewers and watchers are too, as a result of your brilliance and your insights. See you guys on the next time when we come forward. We're going to be talking about Donald Trump, his body language. What does it tell us? I'm also going to talk about the historical nature of a former president indicted on federal charges right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
Gotta stay fresh, my house shot with a rest bar,
Have you visited us online for the grand opening of KBLA.store? For the best in new merch, gift ideas, books, media, and more, log on to KBLA.store. Be sure to check out our KBLA team